Hello, everyone. Welcome back to No Cap Space. Tyler Luca here, holding it down. We got Shawnee with boots on the ground, which means I am calling the ISO tonight on, how would I describe that game? One of the games of all time. Certainly one of them. But it's a game where South Carolina gets the revenge. I was there in person in Las Vegas when Texas got the win earlier this season. This time it goes the other way with South Carolina. We're going to dive into everything going on with this game, all the different aspects of it, because goodness, one of the most chaotic games I've ever seen, period, in my entire life, but also a game where there were some shining players in this game to me. Before we get into it, of course, code NOCAT15 down below. Home field, get 15% off. Link in the description. Make sure you're subscribed here and NOCATSpaceWBB.com. Of course, become a YouTube member or a paid subscriber on the website. You get to join the Discord. We were talking the entire game. There's still more games going on tonight that we're going to be chatting through as well after this. And as always, a super chat gets your message on the screen. So if you got something to say about this game, a super chat will get you on here as we discuss. But certainly gonna be talking to the chat a lot with it being the ISO tonight. But again, super chat, get your message on screen, get you guaranteed to get your question or comment read here on the live. Buddy, there's one place I want to start with this game. And it's not the turnovers. It's Raven Johnson. To me, in that fourth quarter, Raven Johnson, out of all the chaos of the night, and goodness gracious, there was so much chaos. But after all the chaos the entire night, Raven Johnson in that fourth quarter, whether it was the assists, the points, she ends the game with 10 points and 6 assists. Which, I mean, in this game, you might as well have accounted for 100 points with that stat line, it feels like. But Raven Johnson in this game, if you've been a part of women's basketball Twitter discourse when it comes to Raven Johnson, first off, God bless you. Second off, the entire thing about Raven was like the intangibles, right? And the ability to play winning basketball and to consistently win basketball games. Today, Raven Johnson won this basketball game in so many ways in that fourth quarter in terms of being the point guard that could slow it down when needed, could go get a bucket when needed, which is something that Raven Johnson has been phenomenal at over the course of this season and taking her game to a different level offensively. Raven Johnson, in a whole lot of ways, is the reason that South Carolina wins this game and scratches out this 68-65 victory tonight. There's been, again, like it's a game where there's a lot of negative to throw around, and we're going to get to it, I promise you. But Raven Johnson, to me, in that fourth quarter was a star, frankly. And it's not the most flashy box score. It's not the most flashy plays. But Raven Johnson, to me, in so many ways, wins South Carolina this game in that fourth quarter. We got a super chat here. KGB, $5. It was, if get it out the mud was a game, 100. I mean, yeah, we're going to get to that. Raven Johnson, we're starting the dialogue. I mean, there's a lot of teams. Look, the WNBA, you can make the argument pretty easily, I feel like, that point guard is the position across the league with the least depth. Raven Johnson is working her way onto a roster. I mean, easily to me. And not only just a roster, but like her draft stock is going up with these performances. Also, Vic not playing the free throw game at the end was wicked. Yeah, it was. That whole ending was really weird, and then you don't have like the timeouts, and it's, you know, again, you don't shoot threes. Jordan Lee is fouled out. It was weird, right? But I mean, again, that's kind of the nature of this game, maybe more than any. And I'm very excited to hear what Vic has to say in the post game press conference, which Shawnee is at right now, and well, you know, getting there. I literally am waiting to get the word that it's being uploaded and everything as we speak. So we're going to be hearing what Vic has to say. Obviously made waves with the comments that he had about the SEC. So I'm excited to see what he has to say after this game. I want to talk more about some South Carolina players though. As the winners here, first off, Adeltac, they got McKeer. both off the bench. I thought both of them. It's again not. I mean, look, not the sexiest stat lines, not the most shiny stat lines, but the impact. How many blocks? Tech only got one block because 6 of them were jump balls, which was a lot, frankly. I don't know if all those were jump balls. I thought with a bench that is not, in a lot of ways, the South Carolina team is not the way that we have kind of gotten used to the death machine that is South Carolina, with just the sheer amount of depth that could just kind of suffocate other teams. This was some of the best depth performance that we've seen from South Carolina to me in terms of truly making an impact on the game with Tack and Mick here. Like, I was so incredibly impressed by both of them and their stretches where they were really kind of making some of those big impact plays over the course of this game. I was incredibly impressed with them. I thought Tanaya Latson, for what was a weird game, obviously across the board, might have had my favorite performance from her since she's joined South Carolina? Question mark. I'd have to kind of go back and look, but like the steals that she had, to me, this was, if nothing else, maybe the best display of like why Tanaya Latson came to South Carolina, in the sense of being able to show off the defensive capabilities. Some of the steals, I mean, the decision making for both teams over the course of this game was atrocious, to say the least. But to me, Tanaya Latson, 12 points, 5 and 9 shooting, had a little like there was that one turnover where she did the 360, which was ridiculous. But I think every player had at least one play where you're just like, what the hell are you doing over the course of this game? Again, I think to me that this is a fair argument to be her most impressive game in a South Carolina uniform. And maybe this is selfishly for me because of the what I've seen her do at Florida State. I still selfishly, like, when I see South Carolina struggling in this way offensively, I'm still like, can we just like unleash Latson and let her go, And like, we still haven't gotten that. I don't think we're going to get that now. I mean, I think if we were going to see that, we would have been seeing that against some of these top tier teams that South Carolina has been able to play against. But to me, if I'm taking kind of, again, that might be even just selfish thinking, frankly, in terms of like, I just want to see Tanaya Latson be able to go do those things because I like watching Tanaya Latson go do those things. It was, I think, her best performance on arguably both sides of the ball. Again, not the highest scoring game. We know Tanaya Latson could go and be an absolute bucket, but I just left feeling the impact of Tanaya Latson on this game. And that's not something I can say for every Tanaya Latson game I've watched with South Carolina this season, which is the majority of them. That's like, she hasn't been bad, but we just know, especially if you're familiar with Tanaya Latson's game from Florida State, what the impact can be offensively. And sometimes I think, again, could just be selfish. Sometimes I feel like when we're not seeing that, we're not getting the full picture and the full meal. We're just kind of getting the sides. We're not getting the entree with Tanaya Latson. Tonight, I felt the impact. $2 here from Joe. Thank you for the super chat. Again, super chats, get your message on the screen. She was playing with more freedom today. I agree. It felt like that. To me, it felt like that on both sides of the ball, I might add. Like, to me, it really, truly felt like, again, defensively, she was roaming. She was being able to be aggressive in the passing lanes, which obviously being aggressive on defense and being an attacking defense is something that South Carolina, that's been what they do forever and ever, right? Not surprising there to see that and her grow into that more so. But I thought so too on the offensive end, where it just felt like there was less thinking today. Whether it was the backdoor cut where Raven had that phenomenal pass coming through some of that Texas defense, or different plays that she had over the course of this game. Again, to me, I think off the top of my head, pretty confidently, I know she's had like higher scoring games, but I think this might be my favorite, at least, if not best, quote unquote, Tanaya Latson game we've seen since she's joined South Carolina. Again, thank you for the super chat. Super chat, get your message on the screen. Tessa Johnson. Look, this is another one that really stresses me out or annoys me sometimes with 28 minutes from Tessa in this game. Doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. And I want her to get more minutes. I want more burn. She, was it 13 points tonight, 4 or 5, 3 or 4 from 3. Had some turnovers today, but I mean, goodness, everyone did, I am such a believer in Tessa Johnson as a player, both in the now and what I think that she's going to be able to be as the W continues to increase their 3-point volume and you see 3 and D become more of a thing. I want more Tessa Johnson. I want more Tessa Johnson. And I thought the game asked for more Tessa Johnson today than we got. And I would have liked to see that a little bit more so. Was second in the team in scoring, but only 28 minutes in this game. And obviously, again, South Carolina certainly has the ability to go into their bench. But yeah, I would have loved to see more Tessa Johnson because I thought she was phenomenal today. And frankly, I kind of thought that this year would be the year that she grows into being a little bit more of like that player of like responsibility more so. And she's very good in her role, and I thought that her role was exactly what was called for today, which is a lot of 3-and-D in that way. And I just I feel like we haven't seen that fully. And again, maybe that's me, like I'm a fan of Tessa Johnson's game. Maybe that's me thinking selfishly here with that. But this game, in my eyes, with how chaotic it was and the ability to get rebounds and kick out to threes or whatever, while also not sacrificing anything on the defensive end, to me, this called for Tessa Johnson a little bit more. I would have liked to see more, and I thought she was great in her minutes tonight. Medina was fantastic. I thought the three, the dagger with like 4 minutes left, because that's a 3-pointer in this game. Might as well count it for 10. Like I mean, goodness gracious, I that ball went up, and I feel like everyone was like, like with the course of this game, it's like, no way this is the one that goes in. And then, of course, splash. South Carolina Death Machine reigns on, like, of course. And it was awesome. But just over the course of this game, entire impact from her. Joyce Edwards. Joyce Edwards leads the team in scoring, 14 points. 3 of 11 on the night, 8 of 9 from the free throw line. 6 turnovers, which ties, no, not even ties. Never mind. I'm looking at the wrong stat. Easily most on South Carolina's team. Had defensive impact, had that big block where she came flying in, 3 steals, 2 blocks. There is, I think the next step for Joyce Edwards is finding a little bit more like layers to her offensive game, where if you're not scoring, what's next, and doing that with control. And I think that we didn't have that today with Joyce. And I think we saw, in the midst of what was already a chaotic game that's going to be a struggle for anybody to try and score, I think we saw that today some, where one, she just wasn't finishing at her best, but also I think the decision making can just be better, frankly. And but I thought, where there's been like some fair assessment of her, I felt like, where sometimes when she's not scoring, she's not fully engaged. I didn't get that type of feeling today from Joyce, which is a good thing, and I think is a genuine improvement, because again, we saw I thought she was active defensively, and ends the game as the leading rebounder here as well for South Carolina with 8. And so it was an odd Joyce Edwards game, and I don't know what exactly to fully take from it. But ultimately, like, I think the thing that I'm leaving with is, like, we know you could score. You could score. And we saw the defense as well. And I was like, I want more of that. But it's finding the layers to that offensive game. But yeah, ultimately, I'm just leaving. I can't stop. Like, to me, Raven Johnson, it just absolutely just wins that game in the fourth quarter, and decided to go out like a winner in that fourth quarter. Again, Sanaa Latson, arguably to me, I think my favorite game of her since she's came to South Carolina, and I want more Tessa Johnson. That is the summary for South Carolina. We got to talk about turnovers though, and this is when we'll start to bridge over to Texas a little bit as well. But I want to start with South Carolina. The amount of we got to practice 4 verts in practice, I guess, going forward. The amount of like overhead passes that just went way too far. I don't know, with the Molly Benetti, the physical training and everything, they too strong. Those passes were going way over. Way over. I mean, they had 20 turnovers on the night, 23 made field goals for South Carolina. And again, we're certainly going to get to the Texas side of that as well. But to stick with South Carolina for a second, the amount of passes that just like went over people's heads specifically that ended in turnovers were insane. Notably, though, a lot of dead ball turnovers, which was important over the course of this game. But oh my God, the inbounds, just in general, I can't, like, Texas being a pressing team isn't a secret, and so I was shocked to see the amount of struggles that came with just simply inbounding the ball. This is not news by any means that this is what you're going to get with Texas. And so I was pretty shocked just at the sheer amount of struggles that we saw from South Carolina when it came to turning the ball over, but especially when it came to inbounding the ball, as was noted plenty of times on the broadcast, rightfully so. I couldn't believe how much of an issue it was to just get the ball in bounds. I was stunned by that. I also think just generally over the course of this game, there was bad decision making everywhere. I mentioned it with Tanaya where she had like the 360 pass shot thing. Look, I think everyone had at least just like one like decision where I'm just dumbfounded, like across the entire game tonight, like both teams. I think every player, like if you had a turnover, I probably was like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this at some point? And to me, this is obviously becoming more of a trend with Texas. After they set their record for the season, Texas came in as one of the best. I was there in Vegas with Texas. We can move over to Texas a little bit. I was in Vegas when Texas beat UCLA and they beat South Carolina. I was there in person. I heard it. I saw it. I went to the press conference. I was there, boots on the ground. The biggest thing in those games, to me, in a lot of ways, was the turnover margin, especially against UCLA. What's crazy, notably, is that in that game against South Carolina, which Texas won, they had more turnovers in that game as well than both their average and South Carolina. They had 15 in that game to South Carolina's 13. Now, obviously, we're talking to a whole different stratosphere with this game and the amount of turnovers and deflections and everything. But this is now 2 games in a row where Texas set their season high for turnovers. And you're playing against 2 aggressive defenses, but this is the problem. Through and through. Justice Carlton, 5 turnovers, leads the way for Texas. Roy Herman, I think, was it the South Carolina game? Yes, it was a South Carolina game where, yes, because she had the high score game against UCLA. The South Carolina game in Vegas, she had the 9-2 assist to turnover ratio, and that was such a massive deal. In this game, it's 5-3, right? But you look, and I saw this point made about Joyce Edwards as well, and it's well taken. How many people have multiple turnovers with no assists over the course of this game? Joyce Edwards is one of them. She had 6 turnovers to 0 assists. Justice Carlton has 5 turnovers with 0 assists. Cunningham, 2 turnovers, 0 assists. Sid Berry, 2 turnovers, 0 assists. Preston, 2 turnovers, 0 assists. There's a whole lot more on the Texas side. There's a whole lot more when it comes to that. Tessa Johnson also was like that with 4 turnovers, 0 assists. Like, it's interesting, and I don't know how much to take from this game because this game was such a car crash the entire way. And so from a South Carolina perspective, I'm kind of okay with chalking this up to the game. But from Texas, this is now 2 games in a row where we've seen you have these struggles with the turnovers. And with that, that one time is one time, 2 times is a coincidence, 3 times it can become a trend. And you don't want it to become a trend. Again, Texas does not have the offensive capability to have turnover problems. The thing that they have done so well since Vic Schaefer has taken over the helm at Texas was turnover margin, scoring off turnovers. I mean, we know what Texas is about. It's their defense. But that gets completely nullified if you're just giving the ball back to the other team every time you go down the floor. That has to get fixed now for Texas. There's not any other option for Texas. They are a very, very, very good team when they're not turning the ball over. When they're turning the ball over, they become a team with major liabilities. Major liabilities. And so when I think about this game for Texas, as we kind of just shift over there, I want to start with Madison Booker. 24 points on this game, 11 to 25, 1 for 5 from 3. Only 2 turnovers in this game, which is like a miracle for the amount that she had the ball in her hand compared to how many turnovers everyone else across this game had, right? 2 assists, 5 rebounds, 2 steals. It's interesting because you see 25 shot attempts, right? Next highest on this team is Roy Harmon with 12. And yet, I still felt like I left wanting more from Booker in this game in terms of the amount of shots and like the approach that Texas had to be specific with getting Madison Booker shots. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Jordan Lee obviously was in foul trouble for a lot of this, right? You don't have like for when you look at last game, you had to play Justice Carlton was major in that game with 13 points. You don't have anybody really kind of fill that gap in where Jordan Lee also in that game had 19. It was just a little bit different spread, and it didn't feel like I don't know, and I hesitate to say this because I don't want it's not meant to be some like larger comment when it comes to Madison Booker, but there's just times where I just go take over. Like, you can shoot over just about anybody, you know? And I didn't feel like we were always feeling that. Whether that was Texas not being intentional with getting her the ball or like just the way the sets were. I don't know. I don't know exactly what to pinpoint for. I don't know if it's a Madison thing individually. I think it's a mix of a little bit of everything. But I haven't felt that takeover in that way. I think we got it a little bit in the LSU game at the end of that third quarter going to the fourth, where I felt like she was the only one with her energy actually up and going. And we didn't feel that in this game, even though she had the 25 shot attempts. And I don't blame Madison Booker for this loss. So like, I don't want it to like come off as that by any means. This is more so out of respect for how good I think Madison Booker is. And where it feels like, again, even when you have that many shot attempts, I'm still itching and craving for more. And a lot of that also has to do with how poor this Texas offense is and how it can be. And look, this is also nothing new. Frankly, this is something that I hope from a neutral perspective, I hoped that Texas had gotten over this. Obviously, Aaliyah Crump being out is something that hurt when it comes to trying to get past having like offensive lulls and games where it just feels like you can't buy a bucket, right? I thought Jordan Lee becoming a more important player on this team from last year to this year. I wanted more of her last year. Now seeing her do that this year, obviously the foul trouble comes into play with that. It's frustrating to see that after all of these years, Texas still hasn't developed or recruited more shooting, more three-point shooting, even if it's just situational, you know. It just makes it's such a not simplicity, but like every time you're slowing down the offense and you're running like Iverson cuts across the way, or you're just running kind of motion offense where you're almost just circling, waiting, hoping for Roy Harmon or Madison Booker, whoever's not on the ball at the top of the key or on the wing towards half court. You're kind of just circling and waiting and hoping that one of your two star players comes and gets open and is able to hit a mid-range shot. And that's just not. In the year of our Lord 2026, you got to just have a little bit more of a threat and a little bit more spacing to me. And again, this is where I had hoped to see Jordan Lee just kind of fulfill that. But you're asking one player to do that. And again, you're also asking, got in foul trouble and everything as well over the course of this game early on, super early on, was in foul trouble. And like they didn't have the impact from the bigs that you saw in that first game as well in Vegas, where you were able to kind of throw it in and it was Justice Carlton in that game that was really, really good. But I thought the impact of their bigs was felt across the board in that game, being there in person. You just didn't have that. You didn't have that today. And look, in the similar way to South Carolina, a pretty close margin, 22 turnovers, 26 made shots. And it's just not going to do it. It's not going to do it when, and look, it's a lot. I mean, you could say a lot of the same things with South Carolina. I mean, like, but again, to me, I'm more worried about Texas leaving this because of what we saw against LSU and the fact that this is a bit of a trend. And I mean, look, is there a vendetta? I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that. I don't think there's a vendetta against Texas. Is it tough that they had to go to LSU in the South Carolina back-to-back? Hell yeah. That's brutal. That's tough. But in terms of one thing I was really looking at in this game with Texas, and I think I leave feeling pretty assured about it, I would say, was the energy levels, because I was so disappointed with that at the LSU game. And if you'd listened to Ball Up Top, you'd heard the whole take. But long story short, I felt like they didn't show up. And it felt like everyone didn't show up. We didn't get a big jacket throw until like 5 minutes left in that game. And it felt like Madison Booker was like one of the only ones like really kind of going in that game. Preston as well against LSU, right? But I was worried about the energy. And in terms of being able to then pick that energy back up, having to go to CLA and have to go play at South Carolina, knowing what that's going to do. And we had seen in years past where there's been a little bit of struggles for Texas to get settled into these games against South Carolina, especially on the road. Like we've seen that before. I thought they did a good job of that. I thought we got the Vic jacket throw in the second quarter, great timing. I think there's a bit of a balance here where it's like you don't want to come out full guns blazing, 100 like going 100 million miles per hour, because then if you start messing up, that just feeds to the crowd and things can get wicked really quick. I thought that they had a calm, but they were active, and it was again, like I don't think they like fed into the crowd, which was a balance you have to find when you're in these places. But everything changed at the end of the first half when it looked like Texas had South Carolina not on the ropes by any means. Again, it's only just halftime, right? But like it felt like they genuinely had kind of psyched South Carolina out just a little bit, right? I didn't like some of the lineups in the first half from South Carolina. I thought there was too many lineups where you didn't have Tanaya or Joyce on the floor, especially I think it was the back half of the first quarter where you had that, and I was like, I don't love this in terms of just trying to get your offense going. But that end of the first half where South Carolina just locked in on defense and started forcing turnovers, and Texas was making silly decisions, to me, that changes it. That changes this entire game. If you go up into halftime up by like 7, like, and what was the score going into halftime? Let me see if I can find it real quick. I mean, it just, to me, just that completely changes the game when you do that. And so when they went into halftime, it was tied. That's right. It was tied. It was tied because they had come back. So their largest lead at that point was 7. So, look at me. It was 7. If you go into halftime up by 7, I think we're having a different conversation in terms of what South Carolina has to do in that third quarter to ramp up. Now, again, we've seen many times where South Carolina goes into a game tied at halftime and then turns up in the third quarter. That is not anything new for South Carolina, but it changes the mentality going in, where Texas is on the back foot going into halftime, and I never felt like they truly kind of got back on the front foot, where there was moments where South Carolina, even just briefly, was on the front foot in that second half. And I think those moments added up enough for Texas to end up taking the loss here. Looking ahead a little bit for both these teams as we kind of wrap up here. Again, if you have any comments, any questions, whatever, super chats get you on the screen, guaranteed to be read. Looking ahead here, just at these schedules as we try and see where we go from here. It'll be interesting to see if Texas drops Vandy. Vandy was almost got upset today by Mississippi State, but ended up pushing through. So they stay undefeated. Is that enough to put Vandy over top? It was against Mississippi State, so obviously not like some ranked team that they almost lost to. Will it be enough to jump Texas? I'd be interested in knowing. I'm excited to see. So you make sure you subscribe here because I'll have a video on the AP poll. But looking ahead here just a little bit, let's start with Texas and let's think about here the vendetta against Texas. They go and play A&M at home. They play at Arkansas. They play at Florida, who almost beat Kentucky. That's their next 3 games. So for the comparison to the rest of the SEC, Texas is going to have 3 games here to presumably go and kind of reassess, recoup, and get right. To a degree, you assume. After that, they go back into a gauntlet. So they have those 3 games. Then they have Oklahoma at home, LSU at home, Kentucky at home, at Vandy, at Tennessee. Their February is admittedly pretty brutal. But that is the SEC. That's the life in the SEC. I don't know what to tell you. That's the SEC. It just means more. I don't know what to tell you, man. That's been the slogan for a reason. It just means more. When you look at South Carolina, who again has just been steady building since their loss to Texas, right? They play at Coppin State, and then they come here to Norman to play at Oklahoma, where I'll have boots on the ground. So again, make sure to subscribe because we'll have boots for that next Thursday. Then they play Vanderbilt at home. Then they go through like their stretch is also in February, where after they have a couple of easier games after Vanderbilt, then it's Tennessee at home, at LSU, at Alabama, Ole Miss at home, and then they end with Kentucky away. Again, such is life in the SEC. Does it suck that Vic had to go through these 2 games? That Texas had to go through these 2 games back to back on the road? Absolutely. Is that an easy schedule? Hell no, absolutely not. But I still stand firm in how I feel that he should have never made those comments, at least not until after this game, and been like, yo, this sucked. Texas was fighting an uphill battle regardless with the schedule. I think more was added to it. I thought they did a good job of responding. I didn't feel like Texas helped themselves very much by doing that. Look, what a game. Again, we're going to have the post-game press conferences coming your way to the No Cap Space YouTube. We are just awaiting it now. Shawnee's actively there, probably in one of the press conferences right now. If you're unfamiliar, Texas press conferences usually go pretty long. But make sure. Oh, we got another super chat here. Can't leave without this. Shout out to Notre Dame going back to unranked after tonight. Thoughts and prayers. Yeah, there's a lot of great games on tonight. Right now, USC leads number 12 Maryland at halftime. Auburn leads number 21 Alabama at halftime. Iowa just has a 5-point lead over Oregon at halftime. There's a couple of good games to end the night here. But yeah, Notre Dame. Hannah, we're going to save you. But make sure you guys subscribed here. Again, we are going to be live a whole bunch for the rest of conference play. And then if you don't know, when March Madness hits and when conference play hits, we're live every single night. We'll have boots on the ground. We were just talking about it today, where we're all going to be for March Madness, for postseason basketball. But there's a whole lot of good games to get there before we get there. So make sure you're subscribed here. Again, we'll have the post-game press conferences coming from both teams here to the YouTube channel. Really at any moment. They should be coming on any moment. So make sure you're subscribed here for that to be notified whenever those go live so you can hear from both teams, because we have boots on the ground right now with Shawnee there. And again, I'll have boots on the ground here in Norman, both LSU coming to Norman and South Carolina. So I'll be there, boots on the ground. I'll have thoughts. I'll have post-game press conferences as well. Just a multitude of games that we have coming up that we will be boots on the ground at. So make sure you're subscribed here on the YouTube so you don't miss out on any of it. Again, if you become a YouTube member or a paid member on our No Cap Space WBB website, you can find that in the description below. You become a member on either of those, you get access to the Discord. Become a paid member on either of those. Access to the Discord. We were having a ball today. I'm about to go right back in there right now as we finish watching the rest of these games tonight. So thank you so much for tapping in with me here on the No Cap Space post-game show. I hope I see you very, very soon. And again, be tapped in because we have so much content headed your way. I'll talk to you very soon.